Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am MK Jabintaj. Today in this video I am giving you the knowledge about the fourth module of the subject Software Engineering for 3rd Sem CSC, CBCS, BTU students. I am dedicating this video to all the students. Now let us begin. Module 4 Structure. Introduction. This module gives the overview of different testing processes such as development testing, release testing, user testing. The test-driven development, software evolution process, programming evolution dynamics is discussed in detail. Software maintenance and HSE system management is highlighted. Objective: understand the stages of testing from testing during development to acceptance testing by testing customers. Know the important differences between component, system and release testing and beware of user testing processes and techniques. Have learned about different types of software maintenance and the factors that affect maintenance costs. Understand software evolution processes and influences on these processes. Overview. Testing is intended to show that a program does what it is intended to do and to discover program defects before it is put into use. The testing process has two distinct goals: to demonstrate to the developer and the customer that the software meets its requirements, to discover situations in which the behavior of the software is incorrect, undesirable, or does not conform to its specification. These are a consequence of software defects. The first goal relates to the validation testing, where you expect the system to perform correctly using a given set of tests that reflect the system's expected use. The second goal leads to the defect testing, where the test cases are designed to expose defects. The diagram shown in below figure may help to explain the difference between validation testing and defect testing. Think of the system being tested as a black box. The system accepts inputs from some input set 1 and generates output in an output set O, input set I. Some of the outputs will be erroneous. These are the outputs in this set O that are generated by the system in response to input in the set I. The priority is in defect testing is to find those inputs in the set I, because these reveal problems with the system. Validation testing involves testing with correct inputs that are outside I. These simulate the system to generate the expected correct outputs. Validation: are we building the right product? Verification: are we building the product right? The ultimate goal of the verification and validation processes is to establish confidence that the software system is fit for purpose. The level of the required confidence depends on the system's purpose, the expectations of the system user, and the current marketing environment for the system. Software purpose: the more critical the software, the more important that it is reliable. User expectations: because of their experience with buggy and reliable software, many users have low expectations of software quality. Marketing environment: when a system is marketed, the sellers of the system must take into account competing products, the price that customers are willing to pay for a system, and the required schedule for delivering the system. As well as software testing, the verification and validation process may involve software inspections and reviews. Inspections and reviews analyze and check the system requirements, design models, the program source code, and even proposed system tests. Inspections mostly focus on the source code of the system, but any readable representation of the software, such as its requirements or design model, can be inspected. There are 3 advantages of software inspection over testing. During testing, errors can mask, hide other errors. When an error leads to unexpected outputs, you can never be sure if later output anomalies are due to a new error or are side effects of the original error, because inspection is a static process. You don't have to be concerned with the interactions between errors. Incomplete version of a system can be inspected without additional costs, as well as searching for program defects, and inspection can also consider broader quality attributes of the program, such as compliance with standards, portability, and maintainability. The below figure is an abstract model of the traditional testing process as used in the plant-driven development. Test cases are specifications of the inputs to the test and the expected output from the system. The test results plus a statement of what is being tested. Test data are the inputs that have been devised to test a system. The test data can sometimes be generated automatically, but automatic test case generation is impossible, as possible who understand what the system is supposed to do must be involved to specify the expected test results. However, test execution can be automated. The expected results are automatically compared with the predicted results, so that there is no need for a person to look for errors and anomalies in the test run. Typically, a commercial software system has to go through 3 stages of testing. Development testing, where the system is tested during the development to discover bugs and defects. Release testing, where a separate testing team tests a complete version of the system before it is released to users. The aim of the release testing is to check that the system meets the requirements of the system stakeholders. User testing, where users or potential users of a system test the system in their own environment. Now let us see development testing. Development testing includes all testing activities that are carried out by the team developing the system. During development, testing may be carried out at the 3 levels of the granularity. Unit testing, where individual program units or object classes are tested. Unit testing should focus on testing the functionality of the object or methods. Component testing, where several individual units are integrated to create composite components. Component testing should focus on testing component interfaces. System testing, where some or all of the components in a system are integrated and the system is tested as a whole. The system testing should focus on testing component interactions. Now let us see unit testing. Unit testing is the process of testing program components such as methods or object classes. Individual functions or methods are the simplest type of component, where when you are testing object classes, you should design your test to provide coverage of all of the features of the object. This means that you should test all operations associated with the object, set and check the value of all attributes associated with the object, put the object into all possible states. This means that you should simulate all events that cause a staged change. Consider, for example, the weather station object. The interface of this object is shown in the below figure. It has a single attribute, which is its identifier. This is a constant that is set when the weather station is installed. You therefore only need a test that checks if it has been properly set up. You need to define a test cases for all of the methods associated with the object, such as report weather, report status, etc. Ideally, you should test methods in isolation, but in some cases, some test sequences are necessary. To test the states of the weather station, you use a state model. Using this model, you can identify sequences of the state transitions that have to be tested and define event sequences to force these transitions. In principle, you should test every possible state transition sequence, although in practice this may be too expensive. Whenever possible, you should automate unit testing. In automated unit testing, you make use of a test automation framework to write and run your program tests. An automated test has 3 parts: a setup part, where you initialize the system with the test case, namely the inputs and expected outputs. A call part where you call the object or method to be tested, and assertion part where you compare the results of the call with the expected result. If the assertion evaluates to true, the test has been successful. If false, then it has failed. Sometimes the object that you are testing has dependencies on other objects that may not have been written or which slow down the testing process if they are used. Now let us see choosing unit test cases. Testing is expensive and time consuming, so it is important that you choose effective unit test cases. Effectiveness in this case means two things. The test cases should show that when used as expected, the component that you are testing does what it is supposed to do. If there are defects in the component, these should be revealed by the test cases. Two possible strategies here that can be effective in helping to choose test cases. Partition testing, where you identify groups of inputs that have common characteristics and should be processed in the same way. You should choose tests from within each of these groups. Guideline based testing, where you use testing guidelines to choose test cases. These guidelines reflect previous experience of the kind of errors that programmers often make when developing components. Some of the most general guidelines for choosing unit test cases are: choosing inputs that force the system to generate all error messages. Design inputs that cause input buffers to overflow. Repeat the same input or series of inputs numerous times. Force invalid outputs to be generated. Force computation results to be too large or too small. Now let us see component testing. Software components are often composite components that are made up of several interacting objects. You assess the functionality of these objects through the defined component interface. Testing composite components should therefore focus on showing that the component interface behaves according to its specification. You can assume that unit tests on the individual objects within the component have been completed. There are different types of interface between program component, and consequently different types of interface errors that can occur. Parameter interfaces. These are interfaces in which data are sometimes function references are passed from one component to another. Method in an object have a parameter interface. Shared memory interfaces. These are interfaces in which a block of memory is shared between components. Data is placed in the memory by one subsystem and retrieved from there by other subsystems. This type of interface is often used in embedded systems where sensors create data that is retrieved and processed by other system components. Procedural interfaces. These are interfaces in which one component encapsulates a set of procedures that can be called by other components. Object and reusable components have this form of interface. Message passing interfaces. These are interfaces in which one component requests a service from another component by passing a message to it. A return message includes the result of executing service. These errors fall into three classes. Interface misuse. A calling component calls some other component and make an error in the use of its interface. Interface misunderstanding. A calling component misunderstands the specification of the interface of the called component and makes assumptions about its behavior. Timing errors. These occur in real-time systems that use a shared memory or a message passing interface. The procedure of data and the consumer of data may operate at different speeds. Some general guidelines for interface testing are: examine the code to be tested and explicitly list each call to an external component. Design a set of tests in which the values of the parameters to the external components are at the extreme end of their ranges. These extreme values are most likely to reveal interface inconsistencies. Where pointers are passed across an interface, always test the interface with a null pointer parameter. Where a component is called through a procedural interface, design tests that deliberately cause the component to fail. Differing failure assumptions are one of the most common specification misunderstandings. Use stress testing in message passing systems. This means that you should design tests that generate many more messages that are likely to occur in practice. This is an effective way of revealing timing problems. Where several components interact through shared memory, design tests that vary the order in which these components are activated. These tests may reveal implicit assumptions made by the programmer about the order in which these shared data is produced and consumed. Now let us see system testing. System testing during development involves integrating components to create a version of the system and then testing the integrated system. System testing checks that components are compatible, interact correctly, and transfer the right data at the right time across their interfaces. It obviously overlaps with component testing, but there are two important differences. During system testing, reusable components that have been separately developed and off-the-shelf systems may be integrated with newly developed components. The complete system is then tested. Components developed by different team members or groups may be integrated at this stage. System testing is a collective rather than an individual process. Therefore, system testing should focus on the testing the interactions between the components and objects that make up a system. You may also test reusable components or systems to check that they work as expected when they are integrated with new components. This interaction testing should discover those component bugs that are only revealed when a component is used by other components in the system. Interaction testing also helps find misunderstandings made by component developers about other components in the system. Because of its focus on interactions, use case based testing is an effective approach to system testing. To illustrate this, I use an example from the Wilderness Weather Station system, where the weather station is asked to report summarized weather data to remote computer. The below figure shows the sequence of operations in the weather station, where it responds to a request to collect data for the mapping system. You can use this diagram to identify operations that will be tested and to help design the test cases to execute the tests. The sequence diagram helps you design the specific test cases that you need, as it shows what inputs are required and what outputs are created. An input of the request for a report should have a associated acknowledgement. A report should ultimately be returned from the request. During testing, you should create summarized data that can be used to check that the report is correctly organized. An input request for a report to weather station results in summarized report being generated. You can test this in isolation by creating raw data corresponding to the summary that you have prepared for the test of SATCOMs and checking that the weather station object correctly produces this summary. This raw data is also used to test the weather data object. Now let us see test-driven development. Test-driven development is an approach to program development in which you interleave testing and code development. Essentially, you develop the code incrementally along with a test for that increment. You don't move on to the next increment until the code that you have developed passes its test. The fundamental TDD process is shown as in the figure below. The steps in the process are as follows. Start by identifying the increment of functionality that is required. This should normally be small and implementable in a few lines of code. Write a test for this functionality and implement this as an automated test. This means that the test can be executed and will report whether or not it has passed or failed. Then run the test along with all other tests that have been implemented. Initially, you have not implemented the functionality, so the new test will fail. This is deliberate as it shows that the test adds something to the test set. Then implement the functionality and rerun the test. This may involve refactoring existing code to improve it and add new code to what's already there. Once all tests run successfully, you move on to the implementing the next chunk of functionality. Benefits of test-driven development are code coverage. In principle, every code segment that you write should have at least one associated test. Therefore, you can be confident that all of the code in the system have actually been executed. Code is tested as it is written, so defects are discovered early in the development process. Regression testing: a test suite is developed incrementally as a program is developed. You can always run regression tests to check the changes to the program have not introduced new bugs. Simplified debugging: when a test fails, it should be obvious where the problem lies. The newly written code needs to be checked and modified. System documentation: the tests themselves act as a form of documentation that describe what the code should be doing. Reading the test can make it easier to understand the code. Now let us see release testing. Release testing is the process of testing a particular release of a system that is intended for use outside of this development team. The primary goal of the release testing process is to convince the supplier of the system that it is good enough for use. Release testing is usually a black box testing process where tests are driven from the system specification. The system is treated as a black box whose behavior can only be determined by studying its inputs and the related outputs. Another name for this is functional testing, so called because the tester is only concerned with functionality and not the implementation of the software. Requirements based testing. A general principle of good requirements engineering practice is that requirements should be testable. That is, the requirements should be written so that a test can be designed for that requirement. A tester can then check that the requirement has been satisfied. Requirements based testing therefore is a systematic approach to test case design where you consider each requirement and derive a set of tests for it. Requirements based testing is validation rather than defect testing. You are trying to demonstrate that the system has properly implemented its requirements. Now let us see scenario testing. Scenario testing is an approach to release testing where you devise typical scenarios of use and use these to develop test cases for the system. A scenario is a story that describes one way in which the system might be used. Scenarios should be realistic and real system users should be able to relate to them. Now let us see performance testing. Once a system has been completely integrated, it is possible to test for emergent properties such as performance and reliability. Performance tests have to be designed to ensure that the system can process its intended load. This usually involves running a series of tests where you increase the load until the system performance becomes unacceptable. This is known as stress testing. This type of testing has two functions. First, it is test the failure behavior of the system. Circumstances may arise through an unexpected combination of events where the load placed on the system exceeds the maximum anticipated load. In these circumstances, it is important that system failure should not cause data corruption or unexpected loss of user services. Stress testing checks that overloading the system causes it to fail fail soft rather than collapse under its load. Second, it stresses the system and may cause defects to come to light that would not normally be discovered. Although it can be argued that these defects are likely to cause system failures in normal usage, there may be unusual combination of normal circumstances that the stress testing replicates. Now let us see user testing. User or customer testing is a stage in the testing process in which users or customers provide input and advise on system testing. In practice, there are three different types of user testing. First is alpha testing, where users of the software work with the development team to test the software at the developer's side. Second is beta testing, where a release of the software is made available to users to allow them to experiment and to raise problems that they discover with the system developers. Third one is acceptance testing, where customers test a system to decide whether or not it is ready to be accepted from the system developers and deployed in the customer environment. There are 6 stages in the acceptance testing process as shown below figure. They are: define acceptance criteria. This stage should ideally take place early in the process before the contract for the system is signed. The acceptance criteria should be part of the system contract and be agreed between the customer and the developer. In practice, however, it can be difficult to define criteria so early in the process. Detailed requirements may not be available and there may be significant requirements change during the development process. Plan acceptance testing. This involves the deciding on the resources, time and budget for acceptance testing and establishing a testing schedule. The acceptance test plan should also discuss the required coverage of the requirements and order in which system features are tested. It should define risks to the testing process so as system crashes and inadequate performance, and discuss how these risks can be mitigated. Derive acceptance tests. Once acceptance criteria have been established, tests have to be designed to check whether or not a system is acceptable. Acceptance tests should aim to test both the functional and non-functional characteristics, example performance of the system. They should ideally provide complete coverage of the system requirements. In practice, it is difficult to establish completely objective acceptance criteria. There is often scope for argument about whether or not a test shows that a criteria has definitely been met. Run acceptance test. The agreed acceptance tests are executed on the system. Ideally, this should take place in the actual environment where the system will be used, but this may be deceptive and impractical. Therefore, a user testing environment may have to be tested up to run these tests. It is difficult to automate this process as a part of the acceptance tests may involve testing the interactions between end user and the system. Some training of end users may be required. Negotiate test results. It is very unlikely that all of the defined acceptance tests will pass and that there will be no problems with the system. If this is the case, then acceptance testing is complete and the system can be handed over. More commonly, some problem will be discovered. This in such cases, the developer and the customer have to negotiate to decide if the system is good enough to be put into use. They must also agree on the developer's response to identified problems. Reject or accept test system. This stage involves a meeting between the developers and the customer to decide on whether or not the system should be accepted. If the system is not good enough for use, then further development is required to fix the identified problems. One complete the Once completed, the acceptance testing phase is repeated. Now let us see software evolution. Software development does not stop when a system is delivered but continues throughout the lifetime of the system. After a system has been deployed, it inevitably has to change if it is to remain useful. Business changes and changes to user expectations generate new requirements for the existing software. Parts of the software may have to be modified to correct errors that are found in operation, to adapt it for changes to its hardware and software platform, and to improve its performance or other non-functional characteristics. Software evolution is important because organizations have invested large amount of money in their software and are now completely dependent on these systems. Software evolution may be triggered by changing business requirements, by reports of the software defects, or by changes to other systems in software systems environment. You should therefore think of software engineering as a spiral process with requirements, design, implementation and testing going on throughout the lifetime of the system. It is shown in the below figure. You start by creating release 1 of the system. Once delivered, changes are proposed and the development of release 2 starts almost immediately. In fact, the name for evolution may become obvious even before the system is deployed, so that later releases of the software may be under development before the current version has been released. In case there are likely to be discontinuities in the spiral process, requirements and design documents may not be passed from one company to another. Companies may merge or reorganize and inherit software from other companies, and then find that this has to be changed. When the transition from development to evolution is not seamless, the process of changing the software after delivery is often called software maintenance. Rashlich and Bennett 2000 proposed an alternative view of the software evolution life cycle as shown in the figure below. In this model, they distinguish between evolution and servicing. Evolution is the phase in which significant changes to the software architecture and functionality may be made. During servicing, the only changes that are made are relatively small essential changes. During evolution, the software is used successfully and there is a constant stream of proposed requirement changes. However, as the software is modified, its structure tends to degrade and changes become more and more expensive. This often happens after a few years of use, when other environmental changes such as hardware and operating systems are also often required. At some stage in the life cycle, the software reaches a transition point where significant changes implementing new requirements become less and less cost effective.